we're a big player like Alco, American Locomotive, in Schenectady, New York, and Baldwin, which you'll see a lot of. We'll talk about that as we go through the stock. You're going to see they were really the larger players, and then General Motors got involved, and General Motors at one time was producing the most diesel electric locomotives in the world.
这个黑的，这个。Mama
asked me.
Oh, Bob, maybe pass the
Wicked.
What about the big boy?
I don't know where that one is.
People will ask me, is that bullet holes in that glass? And the answer is yes, those are bullet holes.
Really?
These were kept in train yards for many, many years when they were retired. And, you know, I guess it was somebody's way to get their kicks to take their guns out and shoot guns at these different relics of the past. You know, so it is good. That is cool. But we do have the glass. We're going to refurbish these units. We have a shed. I'll show you in a bit. We have started painting. We built a shed in 2023, so now we have a facility. And that was the problem with being in Fair Park. Fair Park was not quite 3 acres. It was like 2.5 acres of land. And we were expanding. We wanted to expand the museum. We had no room. And so after much investigation, Frisco stepped up. And Frisco said, you know, we have almost 14 acres of land. And so we were right near the Burlington Northern Santa Fe line, which was built in 1902, and we could get the rolling stock towed up here from Fair Park. So we opened we started in 2011 and finished about 2 years later. The big boy was the last piece to come up here in 2013, and we like I said, we renamed ourselves to the Museum of the American Railroad. So I want to show you this diesel, this really corrosive. There's an interesting story about this. This is from the 1930s, but during the war, it was actually broken down and put on a barge, well not a barge, but a ship, and went to San Francisco, and then went to India, and then finally it terminated. It was in Iran, and it ran supplies to the Russian army, which was obviously in World War II our allies. So we would take this to the Caspian Sea. They would go across the Caspian Sea and take it to the Russian railroad. They couldn't go any farther than that because the Russian railroad, the width of the gauge of the rail was 5 feet wide. And I don't know how many other countries have that, but Europe and the United States, the gauge of the width of the rail is 4 feet 8.5 inches. So they couldn't make it any further. So, but this it was in the military for about 10 years after the World War II. And then it was eventually sold to TXI Industries, and it worked in a concrete plant. That's the reason for the corrosiveness of it. It worked the last parts of its life in a concrete plant, as well as this one. I just don't think this guy is beat up as this, but these are kind of twins, you know. But that's their. I just think it's interesting that this did. It's almost like a veteran if you think about it. So I'm going to take you here up to the. They're right here.
I'm surprised that engine right there hasn't been scrapped.
Has been scrapped?
I'm surprised. Like, that engine is so rusty that I think it would have been scrapped by now.
Yeah, I've heard. Gotta do better moon dance than that. So what I'm going to show you up here on the right-hand side, this is the biggest diesel electric locomotive ever built, the Union Pacific, the yellow one. That was built by General Motors. And then to its left is what everybody likes to see is the big boy. The black Union Pacific, that was the big boy. And they represent the biggest steam locomotive and the biggest diesel electric locomotive ever built. And when we get closer to the Union Pacific was built They built 47 of these. They called them Centennials. And the reason they called them Centennials is the chairman of Union Pacific wanted to do something special by 1969 because it was the 100th anniversary of the joining of the Transcontinental Railroad, which was joined with a Golden Spike in Promontory Point, Utah in May of 1969. So when they were coming up to that anniversary, he said, I really want to do something special. So they built this, what is really, in essence, 2 diesel-electric locomotives in one platform. It's the biggest one ever built. And just to show you the sheer size of it, it has, if you see the split in the middle, that's actually, if you think about it, 2 separate diesel-electric locomotives. It has 2 16-cylinder 3,300 horsepower engines. So it has capacity for 6,600 horsepower. It would run on flat ground. It would run about 80 miles an hour, pulling maybe 77 to 100 cars. So it was the most powerful engine of its time. And the 69, so they only built 47 of them. And they all started with the number 69 something. We have 6913 because the 69 designated 1969, the 100th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. So that gray, what looks like a gas tank on the bottom, actually could hold 8,200 gallons of diesel fuel. This one was built in 1971 and it was retired in 1980. So you would say, wow, that's a lot of effort for a 9-year life. But the issue became in late 70s, the economy took a downturn. Diesel oil spiked, very high prices for diesel oil, and because of those circumstances, the economic circumstances, it wasn't efficient to run this anymore. So they retired this in officially 1985, but it really didn't run much after 1980. So it's 600,000 pounds, and it's about 93 and a half feet long.
I want to know why this.
And like I said, it was the greatest technology at the time, but technology was moving fast in the last part of the 20th century, and so it had a very short life. So we're going to come around the corner here and see the big boy. So the big boy this was built by General Motors. And the big boy was built by a company called American. New York, and they knew that the Second World War was pending, and the people in the know knew that we were going to have to enter the war at some point, and so they needed an engine that could traverse the Wasatch Mountains in Wyoming and Utah, and so they built this double locomotive, which has, you understand, wheel configuration. It's a 4884. Four guide wheels, 8 driving wheels, the second 8 driving wheels, and then 4 after that. This measures about 133 feet long. When it was full of coal, it was coal-fired, and water, it weighed 1.2 million pounds, but it was engineered to pull 7.2 million pounds of product, and it pulled the product. Now, when it went up to the mountains, yes, it went down to 10 miles an hour, but the point is it could still pull the raw material necessary because a lot of the war effort, there was a tremendous amount of manufacturing being done on the West Coast. And it had to find some way to get through those mountains. Again, so that tender in the back held 25,000 gallons of water, which is like a swimming pool, and it held 28,000 tons, which is 56,000 pounds of coal. So this is an example of a coal-fired. Now, if you'd like to stop here and take pictures, it's a great photographic opportunity to stand in front of the big boy. We'll take a few minutes and let's let you enjoy that. There was only 25 of these ever made. There's 8 in existence. And as some of you know, this summer, the 4014, they were all numbered 4,000 something. We have the 4018. The 4014 this summer went from Houston through Fort Worth, it was here, Oklahoma City, and it ended up, it actually lives in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And there's actually two big boys in Cheyenne at their railroad museum. One's operational and one is just static like this is. But it's the only operational, and that was built, again, Union Pacific wanted to do something special for the 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad, which was 2019. So in about, the chairman said in about 2013, let's put together a big boy, right? So they basically stripped it down and made it oil-fired instead of coal, and they rebuilt it. It took them to 2019 when they introduced it for the bicentennial of, or sesquicentennial, I should say, 150-year anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. This is a big boy, yes. The reason it's big boy is
You said there's 8 of them?
there's 8 of them in existence. Yeah, they built 25. They built 47 of these centennials on the right, but there's only 13 in existence right
The
now.
one that was in Cheyenne, I've actually seen it there. It actually came down.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's walking station 19. It used to be in South Dallas, and it controlled all the trains south and west of Dallas. Now, I hope when we build this museum, which will be on this grounds right here, that building I showed you, the red building, right here, and then the parking will be that towards the library. I hope that they bring this, because they have the controls inside. They just don't have a staircase. You know, so that's a problem. I would hope that they would refurbish that. I think that'd be fascinating to see that.
Wait,
Yeah, that controls
what is that?
all this rate was Union Pacific. It controlled everything out of Dallas and west of Dallas. It was retired. They moved to their, they always moved here. It was quite a vital piece of switching. A lot of switching is done now. I think they moved everything into, I think it's Omaha, Nebraska. They do, and that's where Union Pacific has all their switching capability. So they used to have a lot of small ones, and they, of course, with everything got consolidated and bigger, you know. And that's really the story. Is you know, once these guys in the war times got developed, right? There was no these. I'll show you this one train over here. It would go 16 hours between Oklahoma City and St. Louis. It would have to stop 10 times. Because even though it has 25,000 gallons, it would drink about 10,000 gallons an hour. So you
Like
always...
it has a mouth or something.
Yeah, so I mean, well, drink, yeah, consume. But I thought drink would feel better. But yeah, I mean, it was really a fuel hog, and you know, it was great for when it was developed. But by the 20th century, I mean, once the war came along, they unlocked the technology. It just took over quickly. And so the age of steam probably, and this was built in 1941, it was retired in 1957. So it had a very short life. This was built in 1971, it was retired in 1980. So they had very short lives, you know, considering the investment you made in it. But it just, the technology was moving very fast. It couldn't be helped. You know, plus air travel and cargo, air cargo was coming on. A lot of things that were, you know, trucking and interstate highway system. There was a lot of development in the country that changed the dynamics, and this was just a dinosaur at some point. You know. I'll show you the last steam engine coming up that operated in the state of Texas.
Well, there's like 3 steam engines over there.
There are 3 steam there. They all have a different story.
And I really want to see the small one over there with the silver smoke box.
Sure.
I don't know what that one is.
I'll tell you what that is when we get there. I promise you.
Alright then, cool. And also, another question, like, earlier, last year or the year before, I saw this one up at the front, but now it's at the back.
Yeah, we've been towing them to get them ready for the museum to be built. We just moved these two towed these two in October this year. The big boy, and this is their permanent site now, and we'll attach cars to them that are from the same era. No, well, we are going to put, not here, but over there we're going to have a giant roof over all these trains, so just like a train station. And that'll help us protect, we won't have to paint it off and it won't deteriorate. It is pretty cool.
Like, the big boy is so important. Like, we need to protect the big boy as much as we can.
So you know, okay. Okay, I'm going to take you over to the Meteor, which is another example of steam locomotive. I should mention one thing, that the wheels on this big boy are 68 inches, but what I'm actually going to show you is a locomotive with 74-inch wheels. Each wheel is 6'2", in terms of human terms. It's called the Meteor. It's a Baldwin locomotive. Baldwin manufacturing, big manufacturer in Philadelphia. Oklahoma City and St. Louis. And it was a high-speed passenger freight, well, but it was primarily a passenger, high-speed passenger freight. And if you look, if you want to take a picture down there, those are 74-inch wheels, and it was built for speed. So the bigger the wheel, the greater distance you can cover as each wheel turns. So it was, coal had kind of gone in the way, it was obsoleting, and this, what I'll show you from now on, all these will be oil-fired. So this would, compared to the big boy, this would hold about 11,500 gallons of water, and it would, it had about 6,500 gallons of oil. And like I said, it went between St. Louis, Oklahoma City and St. Louis. Now, I had read that that trip would take somewhere between 15 and a half and 16 hours. Would have to stop 10 times. That was the inefficiency of coal, of steam locomotives. They're very, very inefficient versus diesel electric, which is a lot more efficient. And the reason it's painted so nice is because it was a passenger rail, and they wanted the public to have something nice. They didn't care, like the big boy would shoot out all this coal dust, right? And they don't care how black it got. They didn't care because it was all freight. They wanted the passenger rail to look kind of nice in appearance. So I know they haven't painted this in a while, but plans are we will repaint this. I'll show you the conduit that are picking up out the ground.
That's the one I was talking about, the small one.
Alpo trains, what's called a decapod. What's called decapod. This is a very unusual wheel configuration, right? Starting up here, you have 2, you have 10, and then you have 0 at the back end. 0. It's the reason it's called a decapod. The Greek word decapod means 10 legs. So it had 10 wheels that legs, if you can go with that built this. These were built primarily for the Imperial Russian Railway System in the teens, 1980. And they had, Baldwin had built about 525, very popular with the Russian Railroad. Again, they were configured for 5-foot width on the rail. And then in 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution hit, and they had 200 on order, which of course got canceled. So they had to bring them, they had to retrofit them, sell them here in this country. They had to go down 3.5 inches of space. I think that's probably millions of dollars of investment at the time. So they had to, they did sell this additional 200, but this was primarily built for the Russian Imperial, it's called the Russian Imperial Railroad system. And again, it was oil-fired, not coal. Coal's on the by the wayside now. And This one ended up with a, believe it or not, with a mining company in, its last job was with a mining company in Miami. And so that's kind of its history. But I think it's one of my favorites because I just think it's such an odd wheel configuration.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites too, because, like, especially because of like the huge neck up front. Like, that's why I think it's one of the coolest.
So you were asking about this, right?
Yeah, I was asking about that kind of beginning.
Right. So this was what's called a switcher engine. It always did all day. It worked in the rail yard down by Dallas Union Terminal, which is down in the West End, and it would switch it would move cars around the rail yard all day long, putting cars together.
Wait, what is that? I hear a whistle.
Yeah. So this was the first piece the museum ever received, and it's also the last operating steam locomotive in the state of Texas. It ran through about 1964, and then it was retired, and that was it for the age of steam, at least in Texas. The reason it looks so good is about spring. I think we painted this as a spring. That's spring. Yeah, we brought it into the shed. There's that shed. The gray shed is where we're actually painting a Santa Fe diesel engine right now. And it's come on really well. It's really beautiful. Classic Santa Fe rear bonnet design. This green diesel is Pennsylvania Railroad 4903 ran primarily. It was electrified. The pentagrams on top of the black things will actually extend up and catch the electric wires. And in the Northeast, a lot of these trains run on electricity only. And so it was a double cabinet cab. This one, on either side, you can see the windows. So you could just go from either end and operate the vehicle whichever way you want it.
That was actually a
Whichever way you
field
want
train.
it. And then it ran from about 1940, which was the heyday for this kind of thing, to 1980, and later in the 60s, it was known to go 100. It was a commuter rail between, say, New York, Philadelphia, Washington. It would reach speeds of 100 miles an hour. It was a very, very powerful engine. The thing that's interesting about this diesel, I always like to tell people, it was one of two diesels that pulled Senator Robert Kennedy's funeral train when he was assassinated in 1968. They pulled it from New York's Penn Station to Washington, D.C., where he was interred in Arlington National Cemetery. But that's kind of the neat thing. I'm going to go down around here and show you some older stock. Let's go, please. Cars that follow this, the same era that this locomotive